Once you break them down, stories are pretty simple. Every good story includes a protagonist, a problem, and a solution. Now, within this framework, there can be a lot of intricate detail, and a good storyteller weaves a number of strands together that lead us to a final resolution. But it is always about a central character, a problem or challenge, and a final resolution to that problem. All of that is in the book of Nehemiah. Yesterday we met the central character, the man Nehemiah himself, and we encountered a problem. Jerusalem lay in ruins with its walls and gates destroyed. Now we get into the longest part of the story, the narrative of how our protagonist solves the problem. And like any good story, there is intrigue along the way. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Thursday, January 13th, 2022. Once Nehemiah heard the report about the condition of Jerusalem, he decided he needed to go see it for himself and do what he could do to fix the problem. Now, the first thing he had to do was to ask for time off from work. Sounds pretty mundane, but Nehemiah held an important position in the court of the Persian king Artaxerxes. He was what was called the cupbearer. To us, that doesn't sound like an important position. It sounds pretty low down the totem pole. It wasn't like a cabinet secretary today. It was more like a butler. But as a butler, he would have had constant contact with the king, tasting his wine before the king drank to make sure it wasn't poisoned, and serving as an unofficial sounding board. In short, it was a position of trust. That a foreigner in Persia could hold such a position speaks in part to Nehemiah's character and intelligence. We read that Nehemiah went before Artaxerxes, describing the situation in Jerusalem and asking for leave to return there to see about repairing the city. Both Artaxerxes and his wife, the queen, want to know how long he'll be away. That speaks to their trust and their dependence on him. But they allowed him to return to Jerusalem, and they sent him with letters of introduction to the governors of the province and to the keeper of the king's forest, instructing him to provide lumber for the project. So with that, and with a military escort for security, Nehemiah returns to Jerusalem, which is where we pick up the story. Then I came to the governors of the province beyond the river and gave them the king's letters. Now, the king had sent officers of the army and cavalry with me. When Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite officials heard this, it displeased them greatly that someone had come to seek the welfare of the people of Israel. So now we have our first major barrier in the way of his quest to rebuild the walls of the city. Sanballat and Tobiah, whom we have met before, are not pleased with Nehemiah's mission. Of course, as governors of the province, they would have been obliged to obey the king, but that doesn't mean they would be completely cooperative either. Indeed, they could still do all sorts of mischief, such as writing a letter to Artaxerxes accusing Nehemiah of plotting against the king. In fact, this is exactly what we saw in the book of Ezra when the people began rebuilding the temple under Cyrus's edict. A letter to the new king accusing the returning exiles of plotting against the Persians resulted in an edict from that new king halting work on the temple for years. So Nehemiah had a problem on his hand, and he knew it. But he also knew how to get around his opponents. The story continues with an undercover survey of Jerusalem. So I came to Jerusalem and was there for 3 days. Then I got up during the night, I and a few men with me. I told no one what my God had put into my heart to do for Jerusalem. The only animal I took was the animal I rode. I went out by night by the valley gate past the dragon's spring and to the dung gate. I inspected the walls of Jerusalem that had been broken down and its gates that had been destroyed by fire. Then I went on to the fountain gate and to the king's pool, and there was no place for the animal I was riding to continue. So I went up by way of the valley by night and inspected the wall. Then I turned back and entered the valley gate, and so returned. The officials did not know where I had gone or what I was doing. I had not yet told the Jews, the priests, the nobles, and the officials, and the rest that were to do the work. Under cover of darkness, Nehemiah surveys the situation. His mission at this point is so secret that he doesn't even tell his presumptive allies among the Jews, for he wouldn't have known yet who he could trust. But when we return tomorrow, Nehemiah organizes the people, and work begins in earnest. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.